Hello and welcome to Research Pod. Thank you for listening and joining us today. Generative Artificial Intelligence, that's GAI, has been a game changer for education. Tools like ChatGPT can now produce human like responses to questions on most subjects. Just 3 years after its launch, a 2025 study from the UK's Higher Education Policy Institute found that 88% of students had used GAI in the last year to help them complete assignments. Not surprisingly, educators are finding it more challenging to stay ahead of the technology and their students, including spotting when students are passing off AI generated responses as their own. Some critics focus their concern on the ethics of GAI, arguing that it threatens academic integrity. Others are worried that it inhibits students' own critical thinking and writing skills, plus the fact that its answers can sometimes be wrong. Few academic studies have yet quantified how GAI affects student learning. New research from Singapore Management University provides a timely insight into how assessments can be redesigned to make them GAI resistant and ensure that students achieve the right learning outcomes. The work has been led by Cheong, Professor of Information Systems and Education. Dr. Cheong's research is based on evaluation of ChatGPT's performance in solving hypothetical business problems using spreadsheet modeling. Version 3.5 of ChatGPT was used as it's freely available to students. Spreadsheet modeling was chosen as the assessment task because outcomes based on numbers and logical reasoning can be analyzed more objectively than text. 2 spreadsheets modeling quizzes, each with 5 linked questions, were prompted to ChatGPT to find the answers. The first quiz focused on financial calculations to find the best deal to buy a computer according to different discounts on offer. The second quiz used Monte Carlo simulation to determine how many new COVID-19 infections could be expected among people who queued next to one another for a long time, and what could be done to reduce the number of new infections. To ensure that ChatGPT couldn't refer to its training data for answers, the quiz questions were original and hadn't been posed online before the research took place. The questions for each quiz were categorized to different learning levels according to the revised Bloom's taxonomy, which focuses on students' intellectual skills and developing ability to solve problems. First developed in the 1950s, Bloom's taxonomy is a recognized framework that divides learning objectives into 6 increasingly complex levels of cognition, and it was later revised to a 2-dimensional model. The levels comprise 1. Knowledge, and 2. Comprehension, for example, being able to explain and summarize content. Next come 3. Application, and 4. Analysis, such as being able to apply and analyze the information gained in a different situation. The highest levels of cognitive ability are 5. Evaluation, and 6. Creation, being able to make judgments about content and use knowledge gained to inform and create new work and ideas. 4 different prompt engineering settings were also used in the study. Prompts are the instructions given to GAI models to guide how they respond to questions. The way prompts are given or engineered provides context and helps ChatGPT know what kind of information we are looking for. Basic, or so-called zero-shot baseline prompts mimic our first attempts at a question without any prompt components, setting any hyperparameters, or providing any worked example. For example, how many apples can I buy with $10 if each apple costs 50 cents? The answer is zero-shot chain of thought prompts are still basic, but it involves 2 stages and should get better results. In stage 1, a trigger, let's think step by step, is added to the prompt to extract reasoning steps from ChatGPT. And in stage 2, the chain of thought reasoning steps extracted are added to the prompt. For example, how many apples can I buy with $10 if each apple costs 50 cents? Let's think step by step. ChatGPT will provide the chain of thought, which could be, to compute the answer, divide $10 by 50 cents. Then the second prompt will be, how many apples can I buy with $10 if each apple costs 50 cents? To compute the answer, divide $10 by 50 cents. The answer is. One-shot prompts are more sophisticated. The prompt includes one resolved example of a similar problem. For example, how many oranges can I buy with $5 if each orange costs $1? The answer is 5. How many apples can I buy with $10 if each apple costs 50 cents? The answer is. Finally, one-shot chain of thought prompts include a resolved example of a similar problem and also the thought process we want the GAI model to follow. For example, how many oranges can I buy with $5 if each orange costs $1? The answer is 5 by using $5 divided by $1. How many apples can I buy with $10 if each apple costs 50 cents? The answer is. Dr. Cheong's study had two main questions. How does ChatGPT perform in spreadsheet modeling assessments using questions categorized according to the revised Bloom's taxonomy and using different prompt settings? And based on these results, which cognitive levels should educators focus on when they are redesigning assessments to help students develop higher-order thinking skills? The study's findings reveal that ChatGPT performed well up to certain levels of cognition, after which the quality of answers deteriorated and included many mistakes. For example, at lower levels, it could explain technical facts and complete basic calculations. But accuracy decreased at higher levels, and despite correctly identifying the arithmetical function or approach needed to find a solution, ChatGPT's results were wrong. Specifically, when students used the most basic zero-shot baseline prompt settings, ChatGPT's results were good up to level 3 of Bloom's taxonomy, the levels that comprise 1. Knowledge, 2. Comprehension, and 3. Application. However, from level 4 upwards, analysis, ChatGPT performed less favorably and made significant errors. When prompt settings were increased to add chain of thought to basic guidance, zero-shot chain of thought, the results with good accuracy increased up to level 5 of Bloom's taxonomy, the level of synthesis. This suggests the level at which educators may still fail to spot ChatGPT's input into students' assignments. This spells concerns for educators, as students only need to add a simple sentence, "Let's think step by step," to get high-quality responses. The accuracy of ChatGPT's results improved significantly for questions at levels 3, application, and 4, analysis, of Bloom's taxonomy when solved examples of similar problems were added in one-shot prompts. However, to get significant improvements to the 5th level of synthesis, prompts had to be increased to one-shot chain of thought prompts to include both a solved example and steps on how the solution can be achieved. To create a solved example to include into the prompt may not be easy for students, thus one-shot and one-shot chain of thought prompts are lesser of a concern for educators. Interestingly, none of the prompts tested allowed ChatGPT to achieve Bloom's 6th and highest level of cognitive ability, which is the ability to use the information gathered to create new solutions to problems. Based on the results, Dr. Cheong makes 4 recommendations to help educators redesign assessments and improve students' thinking and learning skills. The first is that students should be allowed to use ChatGPT in class, but that educators should guide them through learning activities that help them identify errors and limitations in ChatGPT's results. They should also ask students how they think they could improve the quality of ChatGPT's answers, moving from lower to higher cognitive level questions. To help students construct knowledge and develop their prompting skills, the study also recommends that educators should encourage students to spend time formulating and sharpening ChatGPT questions and experiment with different prompt settings. They should then analyze the results to evaluate the different responses ChatGPT provides. The third recommendation focuses on how collaboration helps us construct knowledge. Dr. Cheong suggests that assessment should include peer group projects that include ChatGPT as a group member. A project could, for example, ask students to use ChatGPT to help them build a spreadsheet model to solve a complex real-world challenge, such as when electric vehicles might replace petrol vehicles in a given country. Last but not least, the study recommends that educators should focus their attention on testing students' higher-order thinking skills, namely cognitive level 4 upwards skills where ChatGPT was less effective, to compel students to complete assessments on their own without using GAI tools. By following these recommendations, Dr. Cheong hopes both educators and students will come to understand ChatGPT's limitations and promises, as well as how human collaboration with GAI can lead to enriched educational experiences. So, what other conclusions can we draw from Dr. Cheong's research? Most importantly, success in ChatGPT's performance as a learning tool depends on the cognitive level of the inquiry. In line with other research, the study found that accuracy of GAI generated results decreases as questions become more complex. Based on the spreadsheet modeling tasks used in this study, ChatGPT's performance improved with prompt engineering. But understanding prompt engineering, not least how to formulate solved examples to improve prompts, is an acquired skill. It demands considerable knowledge and effort from students and educators alike. By providing empirical evidence on ChatGPT's performance at different cognitive levels, Dr. Cheong's study breaks important new ground. Educators have work to do if they are to redesign assessments to mitigate the negative impacts of generative AI on student learning. This new study provides valuable insights into how this might be achieved, and its methodology can be applied to subjects other than spreadsheet modeling. We don't yet know whether generative AI is a blessing or a curse, but platforms like ChatGPT are here to stay, and they'll no doubt become even more powerful over time. Not only does this have implications for the future of education and educational assessment, it also has implications for how knowledge is defined and how it is acquired. That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening. Links to the original research can be found in the show notes for this episode. And don't forget to stay subscribed to ResearchPod for more of the latest science. See you again soon.